Okay, hi everyone. So welcome to our February meeting and the first meeting of this semester. I'm Julia, for those who don't know me, and I'm the president. And we're gonna get started. Today, I just wanna outline what we have. So we're gonna go over club announcements, and there are actually quite a few. And then we have two guest speakers. They are both L&D new grads, and they both graduated from the nursing program here at Fullerton last school year. And then we're gonna do a little group meeting photo, and then we're gonna close. Okay, for those of you new, NSA, so the Nursing Student Association, our purpose is to encourage, support, and empower the nursing students of CSUF, and we're also open to those of other majors who are interested in going to the nursing field in the future as well. And then we'll have more information about becoming a member if you aren't already in next slides. Alrighty, so important announcements. So we have the Titanthon fundraising event. So if you follow the link right here, or you could scan directly at this QR code, we're also going to post about it more later on, but you could earn up to half an hour for $5 each and max to 2 hours. And then you could submit your proof of donation to our membership chair. And then to explain a little bit more about what Titanthon is, Jacelyn.
Hi everyone. So I have done Titanthon before. I'd done it through my sorority at the time. So what it is Titanthon is like a club on our campus that raises money for chalk. And they do through like all the fraternities, the sororities, through all the clubs that are here on campus, through any type of association we have here. And at the end, they usually do a dance marathon, which is like right at the end when they're tallying up all the money together, and they'll even do an auction at the marathon as well. So when we went, they had children that were from chalk who had previously been discharged from chalk, and they did paintings and they auctioned them off to raise even more money at this dance marathon. And it's pretty fun. They teach you a dance and you kind of come and they provide pizza or food at all. And it's a great opportunity to meet people from chalk, to meet kids that are from chalk, and just to have like a good night raising money for the hospital. So definitely recommend if you guys want to get more involved.
And along with these hours that you could earn from donating, their event is later on in this semester. I believe it's sometime in April, and it's in person. So we'll also offer hours if you come to the dance marathon itself. Okay, so we also have an ongoing volunteer opportunity for Giving Children Hope, and they're located, they're locally. I forgot to put it on here, but basically you help sort, pack, and distribute a lot of goods for families in need. And what you'd be packing and sorting and distributing food, furniture, and medical supplies. So this is based on your own availability, and you get to earn hours from that. You just have to send proof again to our membership chair. And then here's the link if you want to see all of their availability. I think they also have, they have special or bigger events on Fridays where that's the actual distributing. And then I think they have something every week. So I know a lot of you are really busy. So if you want to earn more hours, more volunteer opportunity, this is a good choice. And then you guys could just directly scan this QR code. And then we have more opportunities. So for our full list of volunteer or events, you could scan the code right there. But right now we have a beach cleanup and social. We're collaborating with UCI's Alpha Tau Delta Nursing Frat, and that's going to be February 26th. That's a Saturday from 9 to 12 for 3 hours. And then we're gonna post more information when we get more, but the beach it's gonna be at is Corona Del Mar. And then you do have to bring gloves, trash bags, and remember to wear your mask. And then we're still doing like sharing NSA events and our posts on social media. So you could earn half an hour and it must be before the event or the day up. So it can't be any past events that we've had. And then we're also gonna have a Zoom study session. I'm pretty sure Mai is gonna be hosting it. It's going to be next Tuesday at 6 o'clock for up to 2 hours. And I'm pretty sure we're offering hours for that as well if you wanna join in. I don't think Hannah's here, but membership updates. So 73 members, that's our total member count. And then total hours, we have 797.5 hours. And then as you can see, we have a lot of total club hours. But you could check if you are wanting a leadership cord at the end when you're about to graduate, you could check your current amount at our website. And then if you haven't paid for a membership yet, she highly recommends that you do. So that's when we officially start tracking your hours. And then a reminder for graduating seniors, by the time now, in order to get your leadership cord, you must have been an active member already and make sure you have paid the $40 fee and fulfilled whichever hours requirement. And if you are looking for our membership link to sign up, if you're not a member already, we do have it updated either on our Instagram page. You could go to the link in our bio, CSUF NSA, or you could go to the website itself and there should be a link for a membership application and also the link where you should pay dues. And then for those who don't know, the dues, it's $40 one time. So if you're a freshman and you want to continue in NSA, you don't have to pay the $40 again. That's good for the whole time you're here.
Hi guys, this is Danny. Thank you for everyone who participated in the ACLS and PAL certification class. So we're still waiting for the certifications. So I will update you guys as soon as we get those and they should be emailed out. And then on the topic of regular BLS certification, we are planning on hosting a couple classes in late February for BLS if you guys need certifications or if you guys need them renewed. So I already sent out a survey. Look out for emails about when they'll be scheduled, and then feel free to ask me for any questions. Thank you.
So for conference updates, I know we had a couple people interested, but just reach out to our conference chair and we could try to get funding and put together a proposal for you through HHD ICC. And then the biggest conference that we have right now for nursing students is NSNA's, I think that's their annual conference. It's going to be April in Salt Lake City, Utah. So I'm pretty sure ICC covers travel costs. So if you want more information about that, contact Hope, our conference chair. And also if you're interested in any other specialty conferences that we don't advertise, feel free to reach out to her and let her know that you're interested in going, and we could do separate proposals for you, and we could also advertise those to others as well. And then for fundraising updates, none as of right now, but future locations that we have in mind are Goodwill, Chipotle, and Clyde's. Okay, so we have our guest speakers. We went through our announcements pretty quickly, but they're scheduled to start in about 15 or 10, 15 minutes. but I'm gonna go ahead and introduce them and then we could take a quick break and then we'll get back to our guest speakers and we'll open the floor to you guys after they introduce themselves if you have any questions. So our first guest speaker is Harmony. And if you want to read a little bit about her, I'll read it. So best part about nursing school were the clinical experiences and meeting her best friend. Best part of being a new grad is not having to do schoolwork outside of her work and working in her dream specialty. And then a fun fact is that she hates mayonnaise, but she loves ranch. And then our second guest speaker is Michaela. Okay. Best part about nursing school is finding her best friend through all of the hard work and stress of the program. And then the best part about being a new grad, she loves working in a high-risk labor unit and every day is excited and her learning hasn't stopped since. And then a fun fact, she was born on a leap year. And then when we do our Q&A, if you don't feel comfortable unmuting and asking, you could always ask in the chat and we'll always glance over there and we could ask for you. But we're gonna take about, I wanna say a 10-minute break and wait for our second guest speaker to come in and we'll get started.
And while we're on the break, for anyone interested, we have the NSA mentorship.
Okay, I think we're ready. And we have both of our guest speakers here. If you wanted to quickly introduce yourself again, and then, I mean, you could say your name, you could say your specialty again, and then the cohort you graduated from.
Hi, I'm Harmony. I work at St. Joseph in Orange in labor and delivery, and I graduated May of 2021.
Hi, I'm Michaela. I also work in labor and delivery. I work at Miller Children's and Women's Hospital in Long Beach, and I graduated in the accelerated BSN cohort May 2021.
Okay, so if anyone has any questions, you're free to ask them.
I have a question. So I was looking into programs for labor and delivery because I want to go into it also. And I was wondering, do you guys recommend me doing like a fetal monitoring class or a neonatal resuscitation class before going into it? Or do hospitals like have you do that with them? Or does it look more desirable if I do that on an application?
So some of the applications I did required NRP, the neonatal resuscitation program. And then I believe I did the basic fetal monitoring before just to make myself look better. And they did mention that in the interview. They were like, oh, you already have NRP and basic fetal monitoring. But the only downside is you pay to do those. And then when you're hired, they make you like redo them sometimes. But I would definitely recommend doing it so that you stand out.
Yeah, it definitely makes your application look better, more thorough. Just like a lot of us, like I did ACLS and PALS on top of BLS. ACLS and PALS aren't required as a labor nurse, but I think it just shows that, you know, I'm willing to do extra work. And like Harmony said, you're going to have to renew all your certifications through your hospital. So just like you have BLS right now, like when I renew my BLS, I have to do it through my hospital. So yeah, I've paid for it in the past, but all of that kind of becomes irrelevant because once you're at your facility, they're going to want you to do their recertification anyways. And that goes for all of them. So it doesn't hurt. You'll know it and then you'll use it. You'll use NRP for sure.
Okay, I have a few questions, but one of them for each of you. So what is your favorite thing about being a new grad? And then what is I don't want to say least favorite, but like your least favorite part of being a new grad?
Do you want me to go first? Do you want to go first, Harmony?
You go first.
Okay. My favorite part of being a new grad, probably, well, I work in a specialty that I really wanted to, so that's probably a favorite part, but also just like everything that I worked so hard for and all of the studying that I did and all of that in nursing school, like now when I walk in my patient's room and I get to say, hi, I'm Michaela, I'm going to be your nurse today, that does not get old. And I've only been saying it for about 6 months. So I can't see that getting old anytime soon. Like, I really feel proud to say that. My least favorite part of being a new grad, well, we all had a really hard time finishing nursing school in the pandemic, but now that I'm working in the hospital, I see how hard of a time the past 2 years have been for everyone that's actually been a bedside nurse. And COVID definitely comes into labor and delivery. People might think it doesn't, but we have a lot of COVID positive moms and babies, and it happens. So I think my least favorite part is I'm coming in at a time where tons of nurses are leaving, and they're leaving because they're exhausted and they are just basically been put through the ringer. And I can't hold that against them at all, but it definitely will. And I don't think that any of you are immune to that. You'll probably hear that when you start, like, oh, we just had X amount of people leave or they quit. So it's definitely discouraging to hear that, but you have to kind of give it some perspective. Like, okay, I just started, I'm fresh, like I'm not tired yet from working with these COVID patients. But if I had to do this for 2 years, I'd probably be reconsidering, am I happy right now? So I think that's very subjective to the time of the world. So that's not a permanent thing that I'm not going to like forever. It's just the reality of starting as a new grad. And when I started in 2021, but when you guys are starting in 2022, I highly doubt it's going to be gone. So I wasn't really prepared for that. So let this be like your warning. If you hear that as a new grad, you're not the only one. So like, don't give up. Just understand it's a part of healthcare right now.
So new grad life is really, really hard, but I think that there's a lot more positives. I really love the fact that I get to go home after a shift and not worry about anything else. Like, I don't have projects or homework. Like, my family's super happy that I have more time outside of work, because I feel like I kind of got my life back in nursing school. I didn't have a life. I was just studying nonstop. So that part's really nice. I agree with Michaela, like just being in a specialty that you really wanted to be in. Every time you go into your shift, you're like, I'm so thankful that I get to do exactly what I wanted to do, no matter how hard the day is. I guess like there's not as many negatives or like least favorites, but for me personally, like I never worked in a hospital. I never did 12-hour shifts. I never worked 12s back to back. So that's been a really hard adjustment for me. And like figuring out like how to not be so tired on my days off and get things done is kind of hard. So I'm still figuring that out. But there are more positives than negatives. So there's like a light at the end of the tunnel for nursing school.
Okay, hi, I have a question. Do either of you ever see yourselves working in any other areas?
For me, no. I maybe later on, like, because I'm still so new, it's been like 6 months, but I knew during my OB rotation that I wanted to do labor and delivery. So it's not like I always knew that's what I like really wanted. But now that I'm here, I absolutely love it. I don't see myself changing unless I'm like 50 or 60 years old and I still want to be a nurse, but I want to slow down. Like maybe I do mother baby or something, but I love labor and delivery.
Yeah, I'm basically the same. The only thing right now that I don't love about labor and delivery is that I work night shift, but you always basically work night shift as a new grad. So I think that to say, oh, I'll be a labor and delivery nurse on night shift forever, like absolutely not. My body probably would hate me. It already kind of does. but I absolutely love labor and delivery. So yeah, as soon as I'm on like a day shift schedule with like a normal, oh, I wake up when the sun's up and all that stuff, I could see myself easily doing it for the next 15 to 20 years. I think bedside nursing is really hard, 12-hour shifts, like 3 12s every week, especially if you stack your shifts like back to back, that's going to like take a toll on your body. So I do think that, you know, when you're in your 50s and your 60s, it may be good to have like a contingency plan. Like, do I want to do that at that age? Who's to say? But also I'm not even close to that yet. So that's too far in the future to kind of think about. But yeah, I love labor, so I don't want to leave.
Hi, I have a question. Is there anything you guys would do differently if you were like in our shoes, like about to graduate, or any like specific regrets in terms of like applying a new grad stuff and new nurse stuff?
So for anyone who doesn't know, Michaela's my best friend since nursing school. So we did everything together. We had like a Google Doc where we listed all of the hospitals we were going to apply to and all the requirements that we needed for the application, the date it would open. We like studied for our NCLEX together. We would keep each other accountable. So I don't think I necessarily have any regrets or would do anything different, but I think the highlight of that and the reason why is because I had somebody with me the whole time, keeping me accountable and helping me through it. So if you don't have like a support person right now who's helping you like set out a plan and outline what your next steps are, I would highly recommend like gathering a little group, if not one person, to help guide you through, because it feels very overwhelming when it comes to like applications opening and studying for NCLEX. So I don't have any regrets, but that's my biggest thing.
Yeah, 100%. It's helpful. When Harmony and I started, we like as a cohort tried to have I think there was an attempt made to have like a Google Doc with all of the new grad programs, but that is like really hard to do because most likely every cohort you're going to have like a ton of different people who want a ton of different things. And like it really helped that Harmony and I wanted a similar thing. We work at different hospitals, but our end goal was the same. So if you have just one person in your cohort, you're like, you know what, I only want to work in the ER. She only wants to work in the ER. Like, let's band together and let's do all the research in Orange County and San Diego and up north. Like, if you're willing to move, it helps when you have two brains kind of going at that together. No regrets. The only thing I would say is like Harmony and I are crazy when it comes to studying. So I think it'd be unrealistic to tell you how much we studied, because that could be seen as like maybe the only part where I would tweak it. And like, did we need to study as long for the NCLEX? Maybe not, but we did pass it. So I don't regret how long we studied, but I think in hindsight, we stressed ourselves out for a very long time. And I think both of us were very capable, and we just like, we could have maybe been a little more relaxed, but that's not in our nature. So, but that's basically it.
Yeah, I want to piggyback off of that. I guess maybe one thing I would change, if I could change the type of person I am retrospectively, to kind of just like enjoy things in nursing school and like try to have a life and do things. It wasn't until my very last semester where I gave myself one day of the week to not do anything for school. Before that, I was literally like busting my butt 7 days a week, all for like 12 hours a day. And it was burning me out. So if you can try to like step back, like at the beginning of your semester, and set a goal, like a personal goal for how to just enjoy things, try to do that ahead of time. Don't get too crazy, because life gets crazy even after nursing school.
The question in the chat says, was it difficult finding a job in L&D as a new grad? So I feel like that's subjective. I would answer it saying no. I feel like in nursing school, you kind of hear, I don't know, the dialogues kind of changed. It used to be you could never get a job in a specialty. You had to start in med surg. I feel like when Harmony and I were going through it, more people were telling us, no, you can get hired in a specialty. Like, you don't have to go to med surg. And so I fully agree with that. For my hospital, because that's all I really know, they hire new grads 3 times a year. And they hired with my group, they hired 6 of us. And then with the next group that they hired 7. So, I mean, they are receiving hundreds of applications, but I feel like if you have like a genuine interest in a specialty and you can make that come through in your application as far as your resume and your cover letter, and then ultimately in the interview, because that is really where they're going to decide if you're worth it for that position. And so I feel like because Harmony and we're so passionate about being labor and delivery nurses, it was like undeniable, if that makes sense. So if you just like eat, sleep, and breathe wanting to be an ICU nurse, and every certification you have and every, a letter of recommendation you have talks about how you are made for that role, honestly, I think hospitals, they want that, like they want to hire that. So that's my take. So I wouldn't say it's hard. I just would have to say like, you really have to want it and you have to pursue it like relentlessly.
Yeah, my hospital is very kind of similar to Michaela's with that, where they do 3 cohorts a year, and my cohort had 5 people. And there are tons of applications, but I also agree with like kind of manifesting it. Like I'm going to be an L&D nurse, I'm going to pass NCLEX, and having like a support person who, even when you start feeling down, that person's going to be like, no, you're going to get the interview, you're going to get the job. Like constantly putting that out there, I feel like helps, because then you walk into your interview feeling all of that positive energy. So I don't know if it was hard. This will answer some of the questions in the chat. So I applied to 6 different hospitals, and only 5 of those 6 were hospitals that I really would want to work at. The 6th one, I was like getting a little desperate. I was like, there's an opening here, I should just apply. Which that you also need a support person to remind you, like, we're not just going to take any job that comes up. You're going to get your new grad training exactly where you want it. Like, don't just go for anything. You deserve the best. So I applied to 6. I got an interview at St. Joseph, and that was my first and only interview. So I don't know if it's hard, but I definitely think that if you put yourself out there and you go above and beyond the requirements, that will help. So I applied to 6, and I decided on St. Joseph because I applied there knowing I would want to work there, and I got the job. So I was like, for sure, I'm going to take it. I don't necessarily see myself pursuing any post-grad education right now because I'm so burnt out from school, but I also feel like I'm one of those people who in 10 years, like maybe after I have kids and a wedding and like all of those life things I want to do, maybe I'll be like, well, I want to go back to school. But right now, no, I'm burnt out.
So I applied to a couple less hospitals than Harmony. I applied to 3. The first one was a hospital that, like how Harmony said, it was just like kind of desperation. It was literally the first new grad application that opened, and all of us that were graduating knew literally like the dates, like, okay, this one opens at this date. So I applied to that one and I didn't even hear back, and I'm glad because it wasn't a hospital that I would have been happy at. I applied to the hospital I work now second, and I got an interview, and then I applied to Mission Hospital in Mission Viejo because I had a lot of clinicals there. I got an interview offer for Mission. However, I was offered the job at Miller Children's where I work before that interview. So I don't know if that counts. I didn't take it because I knew I wanted to work at Miller's. I chose Miller's for a couple reasons. Mainly, we're a high risk facility, so high risk for OB. So we're the extremely critical care OB unit. We do the most deliveries in LA and Orange County out of any hospital. So when I was looking at hospitals, I really wanted a place that was a teaching facility. So this hospital is a teaching facility. They have a ton of resident doctors. We do a ton of deliveries, and it's high risk. So in OB, high risk is like we're having shoulder dystocias, almost like a lot of our deliveries. We're having postpartum hemorrhages, a lot of our deliveries. We're having a lot of code greens, which at my hospital is emergency C-section. So my hospital really is like the critical care obstetric area. And that is something that I really love about it. So I highly recommend it if you're into that sort of like adrenaline, thing, because I don't know if anyone thinks that OB nurses just hold babies all day. That is not at all what we do. Do I see myself pursuing something post-grad education wise? Probably, because I work at a teaching hospital. I feel like every single nurse that has trained me is in an NP program or an MSN program or something. So it's kind of like in the culture. And so when you're around it all the time, you're like, oh, okay, like maybe this is what I should be doing. Definitely not right now. I don't have enough experience. All those nurses have been bedside nurses for at least 3 to 4 years before applying to like an MSN or an NP, because they knew exactly what they wanted to do with it. You know what I mean? You don't just want to go pay for an NP to be a nurse practitioner and not really know kind of your plan with it. It's really expensive. So that's just like an idea, I guess, for me right now. But the focus is getting good at being a nurse first. I did not apply to any units besides L&D because I wasn't excited about anything else. My most memorable experience so far as a new grad, for sure. I mean, I have a lot of memorable experiences, but the one that pops into my head is I pushed with a mom like for a really long time. Typically, we don't like to push with moms more than 4 hours, but for some reason, this doctor let us push for 5 hours. So I physically was in the room pushing with my patient for 5 hours. It was her first baby. She did not want a C-section. We had to vacuum the baby out, and that sounds aggressive, but it worked. And she cried when when the nurse handed her baby, and she grabbed my hand and she just like started crying. And then I started crying with her, because like that is the definition of teamwork. And I left that shift being like, I have the best job in the world. I don't care what anyone else did today. That was like the moment. And I get to have those moments over and over and over and over. And so I like, there's bad stuff that happens, but when good stuff like that happens, it's really amazing. Harmony, we were asked how long we studied for our NCLEX. Definitely not a year. Whoa, no, that's way too long. So what? We graduated in May. We both took 2 weeks off. Exactly, like done in May, two weeks off, which means we started studying in June, and we both took our NCLEX the end of July. What is that? Like a month, over a month of
I
studying?
think we studied for like a month or maybe a little bit more.
Okay.
And we,
like every day? No, not weekends. Monday through Friday. Every day, Monday through Friday. And it wasn't all day. It was very focused studying. So we did a ton of UWorld. I'm sure you guys have all heard that. UWorld is the best. I highly recommend it. I wouldn't use any other resource, in my opinion. So definitely UWorld.
I'll backtrack and then I'll circle back to the NCLEX thing. So I only applied to L&D also. And some of the advice that I took from when I was a student in this panel meeting was somebody said that their plan was to only apply to where they wanted to go. And if that first cycle of applications didn't go through, then they would kind of like open up to other units and like rethink their plan. So that was my plan. I was only going to do labor and delivery. If I didn't get anything, maybe I'd apply to like ICU or other things that I was kind of interested in, but like it wasn't my top choice. And that worked out. And I would recommend, because you only get your new grad training one time. And so you might as well take advantage of that one-time training in something that you really enjoy. My most memorable experience, a woman came in like 8 centimeters, and it was her first baby, and she was like completely out of control, like screaming bloody murder at the top of her lungs. Like everybody was running in because it was just so crazy. We had to poke her like 5 times to get an IV because she couldn't sit still during her contractions. So at this point, like she wasn't going to get an epidural because she couldn't sit still. And it just wasn't working the way she was screaming. So I got like kind of close to her face and I looked her in her eyes and I was like, I need you to listen to your baby's heartbeat, and I need you to just breathe through this, because if you're not breathing, your baby's not going to get any oxygen. And blah, blah, blah. I just said a bunch of things to her. I like calmed her down, and she like locked eyes with me so deeply and immediately calmed down. And so I like breathed with her through every contraction. And from that point on, she needed me for every contraction. And we would like hold hands, lock eyes. I would breathe with her. I would count her through her contractions. And her husband on the other side of the bed was like, keep locking eyes with her. You're doing great. Just stay focused on her. And then at one point he was like, you can also look at me too if you need that. So it was just like, it was like humor and like emotional feelings and like the craziness of delivery. It was just so many emotions. And when you like connect with a patient on that level and you have that bond, it just makes things so much more special. And then you get to spend like the 2-hour recovery period with this patient who you just like bonded with. And you're like, I really helped them through the most vulnerable times of her life, because she wasn't going to make it through delivery if she kept screaming like that. So that was really special. And it's hard to even, like for me and Michaela, like in those experiences, it's hard to even like the stories do no justice. When you're in that room, it's just something else. So for NCLEX, we did UWorld, and we were required to do UWorld throughout the last semester when you're in, I forgot what it's called, capstone? I don't know. Yeah. So we did that for the last semester. We didn't take the NCLEX course that I think you guys are offered. I don't know if you guys still have that, but we weren't offered it in our last semester, so we didn't take it. Once we graduated and we took our 2 weeks off, we continued doing UWorld, and we would do like 100 questions a day. And then the school offered us Hearst. And so it was free. We took advantage of it. And I do think that it was helpful because they have kind of like mini lectures that guide you through this workbook, and you like fill out the workbook as they're talking, and that works really well for me. The only thing is sometimes Hearst has incorrect information, so just pay really close attention to what they're actually teaching you. So as far as like the way you learn, if you like those video lecture workbook combo, I would definitely recommend Hearst, but UWorld is by far the best. It's most similar to NCLEX. And we started making our Google Doc for the applications, I think, like a few weeks into our last semester, maybe. And it listed out when all of the applications opened up. So we started applying as soon as they opened. Some of them opened in April, some of them didn't open until May or June. So you could start looking into it now and just making a list of when they're going to be available.
Yeah, we found that like there were really only like 2 hospitals that had like super duper early applications. Everyone else, they kind of are understanding that like May is a typical time to graduate. So a ton of the applications open in June and July. And ultimately, I don't think we've talked about it, but like one of the things you're going to have to mentally prepare for is you have absolutely no idea when your ATT is going to come through. And so we had like, I guess the school had some issues with sending off our transcripts or whatever, because, you know, the nursing students' degrees are the degrees that are conferred first, because our degrees need to be sent to the BRN. And then the BRN basically needs to say, okay, you are eligible to sit for your NCLEX. So something happened the semester we graduated, and it took them so long, like to get our transcripts, to get them approved. I don't know what happened. So I'm hoping that that doesn't happen for you guys. But if it does, just know the anticipation of like, oh my goodness, when is my ATT going to come? Because so Harmony and I just started being like, you know what? I have no idea. I literally have no idea what day my ATT is going to come through my email, because you bet we were checking our emails like crazy people. Study, like pick a day. So say you graduate or whatever in May, pick a day at the end of July or early August, like literally pick a day where you're like, okay, my NCLEX is on this day. Just, it might not be, but pick that day and study like your test is that day. And then if your ATT comes through, you will know if you're ready or not. And when you get your ATT, literally, we got our approval to test on like a Wednesday. We could have taken our NCLEX the next day. Like if we wanted to, there were test dates available the next day. We did not do that. I think we changed our test day like 4 or 5 times, and we actually started moving our test day up. So despite what people may say, like, oh, I pushed my test because I didn't feel ready, there actually was like too much anxiety building up to the test where you just kind of get to the point in your studying where like, I just want to take it. I've been just studying for a month. Like, I think I'm ready. And so go with your gut. Like, if your gut's telling you, you know what, take it. Like, if you're a morning person, take it in the morning. We took it on a Saturday morning. You can test on the weekends. So just know that all of whatever you choose to use, UWorld or Hearst, pick something that you can dive into for a good chunk of time. You can feel prepared, and then just wait for your ATT and kind of manage the anxiety about waiting, because that's kind of a stressful part. Do you think being CNA PCA during nursing school is a plus when applying? That probably as my gut answer. I wasn't, but I could only see it really helping you.
Yeah, I was not either. I think we kind of contemplated for like a week being a CNA during nursing school, and then I was like, I'm not doing that. So I think it would help on your resume, but I also think it would help if you had experience like working in a hospital for 12 hours. Cause like I said earlier, doing it now for the first time, I'm like, this is really hard. Like when you're not used to 12 hours, you've only done regular like food service jobs in your whole lifetime, that part's really hard. So if you can get experience and you want to and you have time, then I think that part would help.
Tiffany, you said, can you apply while you're taking your NCLEX? Like apply to jobs? Absolutely. So Harmony and I were applying to jobs while studying for our NCLEX. So Harmony and I got hired at different times, and we had different like start dates for our cohorts. I actually interviewed and accepted a position for a new grad RN before I even had my license. It was like, oh yeah. So same with Harmony, and it's like a contingency. What is it called? It's like a contingent acceptance or whatever. You basically have to pass your NCLEX, because otherwise that job just like isn't yours. So if you're somebody that does well under pressure, personally, it like added some pressure onto my shoulders, because I was like, well, I have the job I like really want. Now, when I go take my NCLEX, like I have to pass. Like I have to pass the first time I take it, because I think our jobs were supposed to start like a week or two after our NCLEX test date. Like there wasn't a backup plan. So if that's not something that you feel comfortable with, you do not have to do that by any means. Just know that sometimes hospitals will do that. They will interview you and hire you before you physically have like a license number. So that could add pressure to you. If you don't like that, then I don't suggest it.
Yeah, they when they called to offer me the job, they were like, oh, you got it. They explained everything. So it was like, you have the job, but it was like, by the way, when is your NCLEX? Because we need that. And then they would message me. I think there were only like 2 weeks in between. So they would message me throughout those 2 weeks, like, did you schedule your NCLEX? Do you know when, like, do you know if you passed yet? So yeah, you can get a job before you pass your NCLEX. You just have to make sure you pass at that point. Because I think if you don't pass, which going back to before, don't tell yourself that you're not going to pass. You need to just keep telling yourself you're going to pass and like put that out there. But if you don't pass, I think you have to wait like 3 weeks minimum or something to reapply.
Yeah. And everything with the BRN is just slow. So just know that. So maybe pass the first time. Just take all that stress out. And if you're worried about it, maybe just push your test a little bit, give yourself a little more study time, because you can control that. You can't control when the BRN's like, okay, you can retest now. That just sounds stressful.
Yeah. And I think going back to our study schedule, I think we did like Monday through Friday, 8 to 3 or something like that. And we would make a plan each day. Like when we get back on Zoom tomorrow, let's make sure that we go through this section of our workbook, just so that you have a plan every day.
Okay, I think one final question, I'll ask it. We should have done this, I should have asked in the beginning. For those who aren't familiar with what an L&D nurse does, can you explain the type of like roles and tasks that you guys do?
Oh yeah, that's a good question. I can talk about how it is at my hospital, and then Harmony can kind of contrast how it's different. We do a lot of the same things. So fetal monitoring is like the pinnacle of my job. So there's monitors that are on the mom's belly. I'm sure you've seen them in your labor rotation. One is a TOCO, it controls her, or it monitors her contractions, and one is technically an ultrasound. It monitors the baby's heart rate. So for 12 hours, I'm watching a fetal strip. At all times, I'm watching a fetal strip. So I have to know every single deceleration, what it means, if it's good, if it's bad. I titrate Pitocin accordingly. So my hospital uses a lot of Pitocin to augment labor. So that medication is contraindicated if your fetal heart rate is doing certain things. If you are a labor nurse, you'll be taught extensively what you're looking for. So it's not expected that you know that when you come out of school. You just have to be willing to learn it. So we do that. I get my patients epidurals for pain control. I empty their bladder, tons of catheters. My hospital does eyes and O's. I don't recommend that, but some hospitals place Foley caths when you get an epidural. But so your catheter skills, they kind of become very, very top notch because you can just place a catheter basically on anyone. Just like, so emotional support, physical support. So you're actively pushing with your patients. You're in the room at all times. If a patient is pushing, talking to the doctors, talking with the anesthesiologists. You have to, at my hospital, I don't circulate in the OR. So that's a big difference between Harmony and I. So I do not have to also be skilled in OR circulating. If I'm in the OR as a labor nurse at my facility, I'm only in there as the baby nurse. So I catch the baby. Someone else circulates the OR, and circulating is a whole beast. And so that is a relevant question to ask in a job interview if you want to go into labor and delivery is, am I expected to circulate in the OR? We do our nurse to patient ratio is also 2-to-1. You only have one patient, like 1-to-1, if your patient's on Pitocin and magnesium. So we do a lot of medication management with magnesium for preeclampsia. We do insulin drips as nurses as well if we have diabetic patients. What else? 1-to-1 in active labor, technically. So sometimes staffing doesn't allow to that, but active labor is considered 6 centimeters dilated and beyond. Sometimes your charge nurse can split you, so you can just be 1-to-1 while your mom goes from 6 to 10. Sometimes that's not realistic. Sometimes you might be 2-to-1 until that patient is 9-ish centimeters. Then she'll be able to split your assignment. At my facility, I also set up the delivery table. I'm in charge of counting the instruments for delivery of the placenta. So I take placenta to pathology if it needs to go to pathology. At any hospital, if you're a labor nurse, you also have to be competent in handling stillbirths. So there's a lot that goes into that. That was something that I wasn't really prepared for because nursing school, you don't really get that exposure, but we do have moms come in where the babies are no longer viable. And so as a labor nurse, I'm expected to be able to help deliver that stillbirth and know what to do and the policies that go along with it. So we do different things if it's a full term stillbirth versus a 16-week demise. And those are like nuanced details that I'm sure you don't care about, but that's just like broad what I could potentially be doing for 12 hours every time I'm there.
So a lot of the same things, the fetal heart tones, we document those for almost every patient, like every 15 minutes you're documenting on the strip. So laboring with a patient, inductions, we do Pitocin, we do cervical balloons, we do Cytotec. We have 1 to 2 patients as well. If we have 2 patients, we normally don't get rid of our second until the other one's at 9 centimeters. So we deliver the patients and then we have them for 2 hours recovery afterwards, and then we transfer them up to mother baby. At my hospital, we have like a scrub vending machine because we have to wear surgical scrubs all day. We do scheduled C-sections, emergent C-sections, hysterectomies, all of that stuff. Placing cerclages is also in the OR. It's really hard to like capture everything we do because there's a lot of things that go into each and every patient. It's a lot more than I thought a labor and delivery nurse was, to be honest. I like in OB rotation, I was like, I get to come in and deliver babies and it's so perfect. But, and it is perfect, but not all the time. And there's a lot more different positions. So we have nurse navigators at our hospital, which they're certified in spinning babies. It's a course you can take. And so I'm not certified in it, but when we don't have a navigator, I have to know how to do that. So it's basically putting the patient in all these crazy positions and like doing yoga pretty much to get the baby in the perfect position to engage with the cervix and come out the right way. If the baby's face up, that's usually an issue. So we try to get the baby to spin downward. It's a lot of communication with the doctor. As a labor nurse, as a L&D nurse, you have a ton of autonomy. Like you get to do a lot of things without talking to the doctor, but you also have to have a very close relationship. I'm on days still, so I call the doctor probably like 3 times throughout the shift. Same getting epidurals, helping them with the spinal if they're in the OR. The catheters, we do Foley catheters, so they stay in the whole time. And I never once did a catheter in nursing school, so it's okay if you don't. My first Foley was as a nurse. We start a lot of IVs. At my facility, we get transferred to antepartum too. So women who come in earlier in their pregnancy and they're just having issues, like they fell down the stairs and they need to be monitored, or they're premature rupture and we need to monitor them. We also float there. There's a lot more that goes into it, but that's the main thing.
There's so many things. You jogged my memory. We have at my hospital, we also have a high risk unit attached to our labor unit and a triage unit attached to our labor unit. So you'll learn if you wanted to work in labor. If a pregnant patient comes to the hospital and is anywhere besides a labor and delivery unit, they will bring them to you. They do not want them in the ER. They do not want them in the ICU. No one wants to touch a pregnant patient. It is very stressful if you are not trained how to do it. So our triage essentially is like where pregnant women come. It's like their version of an ED. So they'll come in for anything to our triage department. So that is something you get trained into when you're like 2 or 3 years into being a labor nurse. And then the high risk unit is all antepartum, and a lot of the stillbirths will go to the high risk area too. So you can do labor, you can be a triage nurse, you can be a high risk labor nurse. You also get trained to be the baby nurse. You can take on like different things. So it isn't like you just have to do one thing only.
And we do take care of the baby for those first 2 hours. So we have to give them their first shots and their medications and check their vitals throughout those first 2 hours.
Yeah.
My orientation was 16 weeks with the preceptor. During the first half of that, we also had classes, virtual classes and assignments. After those kind of fizzled out, it was just with the preceptor for 3 shifts a week. I still have like 1 class every other month until September. So that's still part of the new grad transition thing. And you're never going to feel prepared to be done with your preceptor. And they're going to tell you that from the beginning. And they're going to say, oh, if you don't feel ready, you can ask for more time. But they probably won't give you more time. You just gotta like get thrown into the pool and learn how to swim, and then it works out.
Yeah, mine was like 5 months, same thing that Harmony described. As a new grad, if you go to a hospital that has a good new grad program, I know we're out of time, I'll just say this. You want a hospital that has a good new grad program, regardless of the unit you're in, because if they have a very solid new grad program, they know how to train new nurses. They really will know how to transition you from being a student to being a nurse, because it is so night and day. So that's the best advice I can give you. Please choose a hospital that wants to hire new grads, because that's where you're going to learn the most, for sure. Doesn't matter what unit. You can find out like on their websites. It'll be very obvious if they are good with new grads or not.
Okay, so thank you so much for speaking today and answering a lot of questions. So we're gonna take a meeting photo. Jacelyn, can you take a screenshot?
Yes. Can I have everybody turn on their cameras just really quick for a picture? And then, okay. Okay, so everybody smile. Perfect.
Thank you so much, everyone. So again, thank you to our guest speakers, and make sure to look at the chat. They put their contact information if you have more questions. We'll have more details about the upcoming events and next month's meeting. And then again, if you have any questions, you could reach out to us, like DM us on Instagram, or you can email any of the board members. So thank you guys.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.